You will never hear in my home that I tell them, "Oh, you're so intelligent. You did those calculations so well. That homework. Oh, you are so brilliant." We never praise that way ever, right? We never put a label on anyone because labels are limiting.
So I actually met Javi last year during one of the Delivering Happiness trainings, and he was one of the trainers. So through that process, I actually know that he has a other business where and also writing a children book on how to teach kids with values. Same thing that we're using at Delivering Happiness for global corporations and team building and building corporate culture. He is using that for his kids, and it's been working out great. So I hope you guys enjoy this interview. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So this is the second video on how to work from home better with your kids. This one, it's a lot more value based. So I interview Javier Mendoza, who is a senior consultant at Delivering Happiness, and before that he actually launched several startups on his own, and he was also hired as CEO of a startup to launch internationally. But now all his work is focused on culture transformation at Delivering Happiness. Yeah, so the reason why I'm doing this is just kind of to help me, but I feel like a lot of people could use some help too. And I don't know too much about like exactly what you guys, but I know that you've written children book on emotional stuff too. So can you tell me a bit like what is that?
Yeah, well, basically what I've been doing is applying what we know about positive psychology to raise my children from that perspective. Yeah, providing them the tools of emotional intelligence, and also applying that to ourselves as we raise them. And basically, we have used the delivering happiness model from bottom to top. Starting with values and doing the values card game, for example, with them very early on, but following a specific journey that would be more suitable for children. And so what I've realized is that you have to be even more aware of the systemic relationships of the things you do with children, because one thing builds on another as you go, and you cannot be impatient. You have to just carry on and start with an idea and be very consistent throughout, so the concepts become real for them, become not abstract but real things. So there are many tips and ideas. I would say that probably the core foundation for that would be to start early, talking about values and using values in the way you raise the children, and you provide them with freedom and responsibilities, as they grow.
So that's the core, to start with values and then teaching them what that is, and then kind of have the behaviors to reflect on the values.
Yes, and so that in itself also leverages this idea of providing a sense of autonomy and how happiness is derived from that. Because the moment that you have a values framework for behaviors, you don't need so many rules. Yeah, so the moment you don't need so many rules, they are more empowered to make decisions by way of the values they selected, right? And so in doing that, you give them also more autonomy and sense of self. So you see how everything builds on each other, and it for me it has been foundational. You have to start early, of course, but those are the foundations for them to become grown adults that are able to cope with all the emotions that we have to cope as things become more and more complex, especially in today's world.
Yeah. So can you give an example, like what
Yeah.
have you used, like how did you apply values with your kids?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the way we do it differently from what we do with our typical customers is is that you have to build the value. And this is, I call it building the value. Okay. So what does that mean? You take any word, any value, basically, and that you think is interesting. Let's say respect, to put an example, and you start telling stories about respect. Yeah. So when you talk, you tell a story before putting them to sleep, or even throughout the day, you point out to this word and to the stories related to this word. So that's how you build a sense of what the word means. There is no other way to do it with children because they don't have a preconceived notion of what that abstract concept is, even if you explain it to them. Yeah, with behaviors. The only way to really understand how important it is by telling stories. And the story has to frame the meaning and how that meaning draws the importance of the value. So that's essentially what you do. And it takes you, quite a bit of time to build a value. But, and you do it very deliberately. Yeah, you have to focus. That's why I say that it's systemic. It's a systemic approach to parenting because you're really building a journey through a number of steps that create more awareness for the children about all these elements that are so foundational for human beings, such as the values. So, you build this set of 10 to 15 values, let's say. You can definitely start with children at 4 years of age with a set of about 5 to 15 values, right? And those should be simple, like the most pragmatic. Let's not talk about justice or honesty, or, let's talk about values that are more behavioral, like generosity, for example, or patience, or, things that are more behavioral that you would see probably in the day-to-day. And after you have a sense that they have an understanding of what those values mean through the stories you've told, then you play the game. That's when you actually take out the cards, you put it on the table, and you don't put all the cards, of course, for the game, because there are many there that they won't understand. Just the ones you built. Yes? And you play this game with them, or maybe if you have, two kids, then you can have them together playing with themselves or with you. It really depends. The whole point is for them to decide what are the values that are important for them.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter how you play the game. Yes, it's to have a conversation about them and then to notice what is that they think is important. And you will actually be surprised by how consistent they are in their criteria and how thoughtful they are in their criteria. And you will learn from them. You will learn things about how deep is the way they see and connect things through these conversations, things that you probably have not noticed in day-to-day exchanges. So suddenly you're gonna have a wealth of understanding about your children. And the most important key to this is that they will select these on their own. They will select these 2, 3, 4 values on their own. Yes. And then what you do is the same thing that we do with any customer, of course, is to draw those values, to bring out the symbols that these values represent, and to just draw more meaning and make like a beautiful poster which you can put in the refrigerator or somewhere visible, so that these are used in a daily basis.
Yeah, that's a great activity for right now for parents at home to do with their kids. I was also wondering, like, for parents that never really had values at home and never did any of it. So what do you think the first step? Do you feel like creating those cards and that would be like the first step?
You know, that's a wonderful question, because it's really the obvious first step, right? If you don't have your own values clear, if you don't have an explicit list of values, and if you don't have clarity as to what those are and why they are important to you, and you haven't had these conversations with yourself, let alone with your spouse, huh? If you haven't done this, then it's very hard to convey these ideas effectively to your children. So yes, naturally, the first step always would be for you to be very clear as to what's important to you as well, and why you're picking specific values for them to start experimenting with. You know, those 10 to 15 values that I talked about before, depending on the age of your children, right? They are your election, right? You're picking them. You are the one who's picking those. So that's because it's important to you. Maybe you pick one that's about having the house very organized, or you know, which, by the way, they never pick those. Never. Okay. So don't even try. But you can always put it there, you know, to create some tension. And you know, essentially, that is a decision you will make, and hopefully you're making those decisions based on something that you believe it's important for your children to have in the future. And those conversations are very personal, and they really have to do with your worldview and with what you think they will need as we move forward.
Okay, so yeah, so really have our values down first before we even can have conversation with our kids. And actually, one of the reasons why I want to talk to you is because I saw those pictures of your kids, like really productive, like they have a schedule on the whiteboard. I was like, is that real? So I guess, like, I think some of our coworkers from Delivering Happiness are also thinking, like, how'd you do that?
Well, you know, the objective here was to provide them with a sense of normality, yes, and to wake up in the morning and have, as you know, a sense of control for the day, yes, and that we know that it generates happiness in their lives. And if you have something that needs to be done, then you do it, then you have sense of progress, and you have the sense that the day went by, but it was productive. So those are all the elements that we have in our happiness frameworks, and we know they really create resilience and the ability to cope with uncertainty and maybe stress, or basically with the fact that their life has changed. You know, they were going to school, they were doing some activities at school, they were connecting with their friends, they were going out, being very physical, going to the park, and now suddenly we are here at home. So the only way you can basically compensate for that or mitigate that impact is by building some structure, some routine that is fun also, you know, that has some elements of fun and reward and accomplishment and learning and sharing and, of course, play. So all those things are very important. That's why we we did two things. One was to create a work at home alliance. So it means that, you know, my wife and I, we work naturally from home because we're forced to. And then we also have the kids at home. So we are homeschooling like everyone else in the world right now, which is amazing that we are all in this boat. Well, in order to do that, so we created a work at home alliance for the family. Yes, and that work at home alliance is simply a list of the types of values or behaviors that you want to express and you want to tune into from the morning. And so you would have things like having patience and tolerance and being kind to one another, being flexible and open to the situation so we can make quick adjustments when things are not going well. Talking about your emotions, having conversations about them, because that's how you draw the reality of it, because at times children don't know what they are going through, and the only way for them to actually express them is by way of another sort of behavior. You know, like they want to express that they have this emotion, but by way of some other behavior that makes exceptional because it's not typical, but it shows that they are overwhelmed with something, but they don't know how to express it that way. So they express it in another way. So you have to go and really get closer to them, have the conversations with patience, and then those ideas will unwind. So the only way you can do all of those things is if you have some sort of a framework for the alliance, which is not what you saw in those pictures. There are two things: the work at home alliance, and you have simply like a list of the activities that we have prepared for the day. Yes. Mm-hmm. And that now there is an advantage here. In our case, our kids go to a school that is based on a methodology that's active. It's called active schooling. It's like the model that they have in Finland, which is very dynamic, is play-based, is based on them making the choices of what is that they want to do. However, there is some level of structure around that, since the choices are structured. Yes, so they have different types of workshops they can attend, but they choose which ones. So we have created the same level of structure at home for our homeschooling activities. Now, don't think, Kelly, that this works like a charm every day, 24/7, right? What I'm telling you is that it's what our attempt to bring some structure and mitigate what obviously is a tough situation. And so I would say that it works 80-20, yes. And there are times where things really get derailed and you have this 20% there of uncertainty where you don't know what's going to happen during the day. And that's why it's tough also for parents to work very definite hours, because you never know exactly whether you're going to have a situation that will have a priority at home. So that's why you also have to do a work at home alliance with your teammates.
Yeah. So really, so that work at home alliance is only with your wife, and it's kind of like all the things that you guys agree, kind of like an agreement.
Yeah, but it's also with the kids. Everyone is tuned into it in the morning in a process that we call intention setting for the morning.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So in the morning we start with intention setting and we tune into our alliance so that we are all aware of it and we have it in our top of mind. And so we start the day from that place. We know how we are going to show up for the day. We had made the agreement already when we created the alliance. Now the only thing you have to do in the morning is just read it. It takes a minute. But that little minute is going to save you so much time, so much grief, because people get in tune with it, and everyone, understands their role. So, hey, we're just trying to make the best of it, and my feeling is that they are happy despite the situation.
Yeah. What do you do when it's that 20% when something happened? Is there some sort of tool that you guys use, or
Love. That's what happens. Yeah. That's the tool. Love is the tool. To be more practical, even, it's about having conversations that are about questions. Questions that try to explore the feelings that they are having. And once we have a bit of clarity as to what is the feeling, then try to reassure them that we are together, that we understand, and that we'll come up with ways of improving on those things that are happening. The other thing is to just accept the fact that things are not perfect, and that this is a process, and that there's nothing really that we can do at this moment other than support each other.
Yeah, that's great. Like, love is always the answer. Yeah.
It's very, I don't know, it's a practical thing to have around.
Yeah, right now. Sure.
Yes.
So can you describe what a typical day like? And I think you kind of went into that a little bit already.
Yes.
So you go in with the intention in the morning.
Yes. In essence, what you want to do is three things. You want to intention the day in the morning. There are ways to do that, fun ways to do that. Like with a ritual, you can design a ritual to symbolize the tuning into the intention for the day. What are the emotions and attitudes that are ideal for this day? What would be the ideal for you? What would be the ideal for your kids, right? And for yourself. And you write it down, you create a ritual, you do the ritual, it takes 30 seconds. This ritual is like a kickoff for the day. Yeah, it's like a day kickoff, right? We also do a meditation, but the reason why we do meditation at home is because we've been doing meditation for a long time. And it took us a little bit of doing to get, the two boys to understand the value of meditation. And so we do it as a family in the morning. It doesn't have to be long, you could do it for 10 minutes. Yes. And that helps a lot. And the meditation could have a theme. Maybe, it could have a theme. It could be about protecting the house, protecting yourself. It could be about healing other people. It could be about bringing joy, bringing harmony. So it could have a theme or not, or you just do a plain simple meditation. So you decide when you start. But again, this is because we've been doing this for a long time. And they are very used to it, so it didn't really, it wasn't too much of a learning curve for them to incorporate this now. Now, after you do that, the second thing you want to do is connect. Yes, you want to connect with them, and I do spend time early in the morning going through the homeschooling work for both of them. So we do workshops essentially, with them. We have several subjects. They pick the subject, and then we just do an activity around that subject, and that creates connection, creates sense of progress, creates sharing and learning and pride and joy. So it's very important to connect that way. There is always a sense of appreciation for the things that they do spontaneously, especially things that are from their own initiative. We appreciate that tremendously because that's a value in my family. Yeah. So initiative is a value, is a core value in our family, to have initiative, to do things that need to be done without you being told. Yeah. So those things are appreciated. And we do always gratitude rounds around values with the kids, really quick, those are fast things where I even tell them, I just told them, like, I saw your initiative, super cool, that's it. Yeah, I don't have to say anything, they know what I am acknowledging. And so I'm not telling them any labels, I'm just acknowledging the behavior.
Yeah, I hear like praise through the values, like
through the values, yes.
Yeah, like you have your values and you notice that they do something that's aligned with the values, and then
exactly. You will never hear in my home that I tell them, oh, you're so intelligent, you did those calculations so well, that homework, oh, you are so brilliant. We never praise that way, ever, right? We never put a label on anyone, because labels are limiting. And if we ever do, they tell you, don't put a label on me, even if it's a good one. Yeah. So that is one of the best behaviors that you could build, because it is a defense mechanism for either a type of praise that would build their ego, or a type of comment that could diminish their self-esteem, right? So, they are the ones in control of who they are, and other people's opinion are important to know whether you're making progress, but they are not defining you. Yes, they are not defining you. You define yourself, and you listen to people's opinions openly to understand whether you need to make progress in any way, but it's not defining you. And that is something very important. I believe one of the most important things you can teach your kids from an emotional perspective. I would probably pick that one as my top. Yes.
Yeah.
Because conditioning limits you over the course of your life, and even well-intentioned comments tend to be labels. Yeah, and so what we want is for them to be able to identify the label and know that's a label. Yeah, even if you're praising me. Yeah.
We'll have the kids define themselves rather
than
having them labeled, and help them choose their values and support the values.
Exactly. That is self-empowerment. And that's how you become, you have a sense of yourself, and you also become aware of what you're capable of, and what is your place in the world. And that's super important to know what's your place in the world. Yes. So it's true that we do have this superpowers thing, which maybe some people could say, well, you're labeling, right? Because a superpower is a way of labeling, a fun way of labeling. Yes. But we are always careful to do the disclaimer, to say, hey, this is just a label. I mean, just a superpower, just to have fun. Yeah.
Yeah. You can have multiple superpowers.
You can definitely, everyone should connect with multiple superpowers.
So, okay, yeah. So then I hear setting intention in the morning, meditation, connect, praise throughout the days toward the values, and then you also have a list of activities for them to choose from. Right? Am I right that like they organize actually they had a say in what they do throughout the day?
Exactly. That's very, very important. Yeah. Because it provides a sense of structure, and ultimately, those are like the pragmatic actions that you do. We have a thing where every 7 years we do like a ceremony that is to go like from 0 to 7 is your first childhood. And so then we do a ceremony at 7 that is a ceremony to go to the second childhood. And when that happens, there are two things that occur. One thing is that we acknowledge you as a child that is growing and learning and becoming more responsible and also free. So there is more freedom that you give, but also at the same time, more responsibility. And so this sense of the balance, you know, the trade-off between freedom and responsibility, it's understood early on. And we create those milestones where things occur. And basically what occurs is that you can create a list of responsibilities and they pick them. They pick what is the one thing that you would want to do as a responsibility. And so we go around the table and come up with a list and tell them, listen, what would be super amazing is that you actually do these things without us telling you, like from a place of initiative, you know, to create that sense of self-organization, you know, where we are in harmony and everyone has a role and everyone understands what that role is. So that is, of course, where we're going to, because they are learning to become responsible. They are learning to manage their freedoms. So it's a learning process, and by no means, you know, they do it perfectly or anything like that. But it is a structure, right, that you provide so that they understand this balance. It's not simply making a list of tasks and giving it to them. There is, you know, a meaning behind it. They made decisions. They know why they are having freedoms, and they know why they are having responsibilities as they grow.
Yeah, awesome. I actually wrote down a lot of stuff that I think like I can talk to my husband about that we could do. Is there any like last thing, final thing that you want to say that you feel like you haven't talked about?
Well, you know, what I don't want to sound like is as if we have everything figured out.
Yeah.
Yes, and the reason is because, you know, this is my experience with my children, and every family is different and every person is different, right? So I'm not claiming that this is the way to go. You have to experiment with your own ideas, and you will see that there are other ways of doing things that may actually work out really nicely for yourself or even better, right? But the message I would want to communicate here is give it a shot. Yes, give it a shot. Talk about values. You'll be surprised, you know. Use these tools. Empower children. Have conversations. And you will be amazed by them and by the depth and the level of the resources they have to understand. Instead of being this prescriptive, you know, you tell them what to do. Use the question as your number one tool to see how they would respond to a certain situation, you know, to see how they reflect about a situation. That's what I would close this idea with.
Yeah. Thank you, Javi. Yeah,
absolutely. Thank you so much.
If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.